What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, let's do a little Middlekauff Mailbag. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. Get your questions answered here on the show. Really, really easy to do. Just my name, at John Middlekauff. DMs wide open. We will start with Pat. Not Pat Burrell, but just a guy named Pat. Big fan of your pods, including the ones with Colin. Loved hearing you guys give Campbell some love on the last episode as a really good coach who also benefits from a great front office. By this rationale, though, doesn't Sirianni deserve some flowers too? No, he is a little annoying, but while he also has a great GM, he's been to 2 Super Bowls, won 1, and has been able to keep the team together in a noisy market, and the players have pretty much stood by him repeatedly. Not to mention, he's shown the ability to adjust midseason based on the players he has. I'm not ignorant to his annoying qualities, just kind of think at some point we have to acknowledge he's done a pretty good job. I don't think it's disputable. You win the Super Bowl like he just did. You rally the troops as he just did. I think one thing, people in the business, it's like Vic Fangio comes. Like, that's Howie Roseman's been trying to hire Vic Fangio for a long time. Like, is that a Nick Sirianni thing? He gets a lot of credit for Shane Steichen existed on that staff because of him. And same thing with Jonathan Gannon. Like, those were his 2 initial hires. The hires since, I think the organization, good and bad, right? And that's where the Eagles are kind of unique, where it's like, I would say Dan Campbell has the autonomy hiring the staff, whereas Nick Sirianni just has less juice in terms of the day-to-day operations of the Eagles. But when it comes to the players, motivating them, there is no disputing he deserves a lot of credit. You win the Super Bowl. Now, I don't give a shit what the circumstances were. Obviously, their team was loaded, but you beat the Chiefs like that. You have the team ready. What you are 100% spot on. It's by far the most intense market in terms of the stories, in terms of the way the team's covered, locally and nationally. But I would just say if you polled let's remove the Lions and the Eagles, and we just got 30 GMs, and they had the choice to hire one of 2 coaches, Campbell or Sirianni. So I'm not including Howie, and I'm not including Brad Holmes of the Lions. I think the numbers for Dan Campbell of the other 30 GMs would be fair or not. I'm taking a strong, educated guess here. I think would be extremely strong in the majority of Dan Campbell. I'm not saying it's 30 to 0, but I think the number would be in the 20s. Question for the pod. Lamar was recently talking about how he had to learn to be a vocal leader. It got me thinking, who is the best leader in the NFL at the quarterback position? And how much does it affect the game? Example, is Tim Tebow... If Tim Tebow was one of the best leaders in football history and knew how to fire up his guys up, here's the link to Lamar telling Kevin Hart this. Well, to be a good leader, you have to be a good player, right? No different to me to be a good boss in any corporation. Like, I've worked for people that I thought were really good, had interesting tactics, but if I thought they knew what they were doing and talented and gave me an opportunity to be my best self or to have a successful operation, I just bought into, right? Whether they had, I've been around football coaches, Pat Hill, Andy Reid, natural leadership qualities. But you just knew being around Howie, who was new on the job, you're like, this guy's fucking smart. I don't always agree with everything he was doing. It was an intense environment, but it's like no one disputed Howie's capabilities, right? And then I've worked for people in radio. I'm like, is this guy the biggest idiot I've ever been around in my entire life? And you just can't take him seriously. So you can't be a good leader if you're not a good player, right? Just like you can't be a good coach if people don't think you know what's going on. It's just impossible. So most of the good leaders, and I've known someone who worked with the Ravens 2 years when McDonald, that team that lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, who said Lamar was like, guys would run through a wall for him and Harbaugh, right? But Lamar at that point in time, it was like one of the best players in the league. Now, I think Lamar, Mahomes, Josh, Joe Burrow. I haven't watched the quarterback show yet. I just had a buddy in the league text me. He's like, "You got to watch it. It's fascinating to watch Burrow." Clearly, these guys really like him. So they're the best player on the team, one of the best players in the league, and the players really like him. So then I think Lamar has talked about this. It's on you to get more comfortable with like being loud. And being loud isn't just like speaking loud. It's being assertive, telling people what to do and when to do it. And Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, the more you play, the more touchdowns you throw, it's easier to get on guys. And you have to back it up by like Patrick Mahomes, all these guys, their work ethic of what time they show up, how late they are. I remember, what's his last name? Brandon, former offensive lineman for the Saints, who when he retired cried because of how inspired he was every week watching Drew Brees, how much time he put in. So it's easy, like Peyton Manning can just, him and Brady, their personalities can be pretty aggressive. But it's easy for them to be aggressive with a guy when they're a dominant player, right? If Daniel Jones started hooting and hollering and pointing at people to do shit, it'd be like, what are you doing? Look at Baker's a good example. I think his natural personality is very outgoing, very verbal. Well, he's excelled because he's played well in Tampa, and he can use that personality. When he wasn't playing that well in Cleveland, it got weird. So I think all the top guys from the top, really, real, true top group, that top four, but then the group of the Goffs, Jalen is a good example. Like when your work ethic and you're, part of being a quarterback, I've heard, was Albert Breer or someone talked about this. One thing Brady really, really took seriously was like he knew that he could never impress anyone with his speed or his athleticism. But like if his teammates knew that like he was tough as shit, so every time he got hit, he'd pop up and as quickly as possible to pop up. That resonated with people. What did Ben Johnson get on Caleb Williams for? When you get hit, your body language matters. Get up and get up fast, because that is what people are looking at you for. And I think being a quarterback, and it's so hard because it's physically demanding, it's mentally demanding. Obviously, you got to produce. The coaches are on you, the media's on you, the fans are all watching you. I think all these guys are really, really impressive. Burrow, Lamar, Allen, and Mahomes. I've heard more direct stories of Lamar and of Mahomes, just knowing people in those organizations. I've just seen from the outside on Josh. I mean, I know McDermott. I've never really talked to him about it. Obviously, Josh is impressive too, but I think, listen, all of our personalities are different. Some people talk a lot, some people are quiet, but there are certain things that you can prove of like, God, this guy works really hard. Especially in football, God, this guy's really tough. I've never talked to a football player that, whether they like you or not personally, if you're tough and you're their teammate, they're going to respect you. That was a good question. God, I'm fired up. The British Open is here. The biggest names in golf teeing it up across the pond to chase history, the game's original major. Want to make some cash while watching people play golf? You can by betting on the action at Royal Portrush with DraftKings Sportsbook. From the opening round through Championship Sunday, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with live betting, player props, and so much more. If you've never bet on golf before, it's easier than you think. Just pick something simple like a golfer to win the tournament. Rory McIlroy. Can he win his second major of the year? This is where he grew up. Last time it did not go well. He missed the cut. I do think Rory's going to be a major factor. John Rahm playing really well. Scotty Scheffler. Can he finally break through? You can also bet top 10s, top 20s, parlay them together. Does not get any easier. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. It's become more apparent to me recently that there seems to be two schools of thought when it comes to giving out contracts. When a player has a season worthy of money contract extension, of more money or contract extension, the GM gets out in front of it and gives an extension, i.e. Howie. The Niners, the Cowboys school of thought is, which seems to push players to hold out for a contract. Can you talk about the pros and cons of each contract and strategy and why a GM may prefer A or B? It seems to me that players who hold out often have statistical regression or injury seasons. Well, the Cowboys and the Niners I would put in different categories because the guy running the Niners money, Parag, has been doing it for 20 years. And in the Harbaugh era of Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, Joe Staley, Frank Gore, Michael Crabtree, Vernon Davis, all those type players, they could always get guys to sign contract early. They would pay you a lot of money relative to the money at the time, but they would get out in front of it like Howie did. And then the Niners have gone through this stretch now where their players would not sign those contracts. Like Nick Bosa or Trent Williams is not signing a meet in the middle contract. I'm breaking the bank as the highest paid player in this sport right now. And unless you give me that money, I'm going to be pissed off. The Cowboys just play it till the end, always. Like now have a long history. Quarterback, the 49ers just did it with Brock Purdy, Fred Warner. Like they will get out in front if you're willing to play ball. But, like the dance floor, it takes two to tango here. So if I offer you a contract, you got to. What if Brock Purdy, when the Niners had offered him that contract, like, no, I want $20 million more guaranteed. 180, I want 200. I want the same as Trevor Lawrence. It's like, well, we're trying to offer him a contract. He's saying no. What do we do? Now, if we play it out longer, does he end up getting 220 if he starts holding out because we start freaking out? So, Howie has benefited that his guys have been willing to sign contracts. There's a huge element there. But even this year, like they took care of Saquon. Jalen, I'd say that was at the time a pretty big win for Jalen. So it's just, it's very dependent on who you're dealing with, right? Whether the Cowboys, Howie Roseman, whether the Niners had been dealing with Nick Bosa, he was going to cost a lot of money. Now, one thing maybe Howie would have done with Bosa is sign him after year 3. The Niners are pretty adamant about signing you after year 4 because they like a little more data. I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to do it. All these contracts in the NFL, besides like quarterbacks, but even quarterbacks, we've seen some be disasters. There's a large amount of risk in signing O linemen, D linemen, all these guys to these massive contracts because of the injury risk. We're just going to see, there's going to be over the next several years, guys on $100+ million guaranteed contracts. There's going to be a guy have a devastating injury, never be the same. Do you know who's a good example? Christian Wilkins, the defensive lineman the Raiders signed from Miami, who's a stud. Really good player. The Raiders gave him like $85 million guaranteed. I had heard this, not from SpyTech, but I just rumor out there, and then I had seen a story recently. He's probably never going to be the same. He's still messed up at the end of OTAs. Like, he might never really be able to play football again. And if he does, people think that he'll never be remotely close to the same player. And I'm not shaming them for the contract. I would have signed him too if I had the money. But sometimes you have a devastating injury, and you're just never the same player. And that typically, I guess in baseball you can have Tommy John, but for the most part, guys respond to that. In basketball, it's pretty rare. Paul George shattered his leg in 2 in the stanchion and came back and made All-Star games. Do you think Ndamukong Suh is a first ballot Hall of Famer or even Hall of Fame worthy? I think he asked this question because the big fella just Ndamukong. If someone saw how I just spelled his name, I don't think I could ever respond. Suh. We'll just type in Suh. There's Ndamukong Suh. My first response is he's not a Hall of Famer. He's a five-time All-Pro. Okay, maybe he's better than I thought. Defensive Rookie of the Year, five-time Pro Bowler. Yeah, maybe he is a fringe Pro Bowler or Hall of Famer. Maybe I underestimated him. Who did he win? He won the Super Bowl with Tampa. Obviously, he's never a huge sack guy, but that wasn't his game. I would say he's on the fringe. Good question. First ballot, no chance. Maybe I undersold him. There has been a lot of hype around the Chargers and the Broncos. Assuming the Chiefs win the AFC West, which is a fair assumption given I think they've won the division 7 years in a row. What would you consider as the biggest disappointment in the division, the Broncos or the Chargers finishing third? Well, to me, if one of those two finish third and they miss the playoffs, that is pretty bad because the expectation for both those two teams is to make the playoffs again. But to me, if you finish third, let's say the Chiefs win 13 games, the Chargers win 11, and the Broncos win 10. Like, if you're in the playoffs, I don't think you probably are disappointed that you screwed around and lost a couple games. Maybe you could have won, but I don't know if that's that big a deal. Now, if you finish third and you're 8-9 and you're not in the playoffs, so to me, it's you can finish third, but think about last year. The Packers finished third. And it was somewhat disappointing, but they were in the playoffs, so not the end of the world. I think we got a similar question. I did a little digging. I wanted to get your take on the fact that the Browns and the Texans both have 2 second-round picks. And those teams are the ones that set the precedent of the guaranteed second-round pick contracts. How do you think that impacts the dynamics of the other second-rounders of those teams who haven't signed yet? Junkins for the Browns, and I might be screwing this name up, though I know the Texans like this guy, Ursi for the Texans, the offensive lineman. I did a little digging because I got this question yesterday. Because I followed this story, but I haven't done that much digging on the story. From what I was told by people in the league, that one guy that got, I think one of the Texans guy, that Iowa State wide receiver, I think pick 34. His contract was essentially 96% guaranteed. So it wasn't a situation where, let's just pick a number, $1,000. Well, 500 of those $1,000 are guaranteed. Every $100 I get after that also guaranteed would be a big deal, right? So if I ended up getting $800 out of the 1,000 guaranteed, I got an extra 30%. That's a huge coup for me. But if 96% of the contract's guaranteed, so 9,600 of the 1,000, getting the extra $40 seems crazier as a headline, not that crazy in reality. I see Maria in real estate all the time, and I've been guilty of this too. She actually talked me out of when we bought this house, is so many times in real estate, you end up arguing with the other, and there's a pride aspect, an ego aspect, over a tiny amount of money. It's one thing if the house is on sale for $1 million and you're offering $700,000 and there's a huge gap. But how often that she sees this dude's offering, the house is on the market for $950. This guy, they kind of finally come to $930. It's like you guys are pretty close, $20,000. And even with interest rates high, the difference of a purchase price of $20,000, $10,000, $5,000 has a tiny, tiny impact. Now, hundreds of thousands of dollars clearly make a big deal. But we're not talking about that here. We are talking about 95, 96, 98% of the contract is guaranteed. So Caserio just, I'll give you 100. Now, is that different with the later pick? The Judkins thing, obviously he's in trouble now. That's a whole other complicated issue. To me, if the contract is 97% guaranteed, as someone told me, if we draft a guy at pick 42, we believe that guy's going to be a pretty freaking good player. Because if we didn't, guess what? We would have drafted someone else. Now, that's where the owner gets involved. Well, of course you guys believed in him. That's why you picked him. But we see a lot of these guys fail. So every single penny that we can avoid paying them, worst case scenario, there's a reason we pay for car insurance, home insurance. You don't want your house to burn down. You don't want to get in a car wreck. But sometimes a dude T-bones you. When Maria was in college, her parents' house burned down. freak deal, electrical thing, burned down. Luckily, they had home insurance, rebuilt the house. But if you don't, you're kind of fucked, And it's no different here. This is a little different because you're just talking maybe 100 grand or a couple 100 grand. But over the grand scheme of things, if you save money on situations that go bad, that's a pretty smart way to do business. So from what I've heard, is some teams were like, "Hey, we're paying him 97." I don't want to argue. From an agent perspective, can you imagine what a win it is? Because if you're an agent, you're not going to have 7 top 15 players. So if you have 3 guys go in the first round, that's pretty good. And if you have a couple second rounders, if I tell you got 5 guys in the top 2 rounds, that's really good. Well, the first round contracts, unless you're Shamar Stewart, take care of themselves. The second round contracts, if I can go into Alabama, LSU, Oregon, and yeah, this guy might not be a top 10 pick, but he might go 40th, he might go 50th, he might go 38th, and I can go, you know what I did last year? I got my guy drafted in the second round where you're projected to go, a fully guaranteed contract. So you want to go with that guy who got his contract, who got 95? I'll get you every single penny guaranteed. If I was his dad, if I was the guy's assistant, position coach or high school coach, I'd be like, we should probably go with that guy. It'd be a good business move. So there are a lot of different variables there. We got a lot going on with this contract situation. So the 49ers guy, the Texas defensive line, didn't show up today. It's going to be fascinating how many second rounders over the course of the next week. I was texting with a buddy on the Chiefs. He says, I think their rookies report Monday. Like they drive up to camp on Sunday. So it's when I'm recording this on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Like all these rookies all over the league are going to be showing up. How many of the second rounders that have not signed no show? My guess is all of them, unless they get a contract done. Congrats on the news of having a son. Appreciate that. I feel AJ Brown, or excuse me, AJ Green, Bengals Cards wide receiver. I feel like he doesn't get the respect he deserves. He made 2 All Pros, 7 straight up Pro Bowls in the 2010s before the Pro Bowl allowed 7th alternate. He has over 700 catches, 70 touchdowns, almost 11,000 yards in 12 seasons. And 2 of those, he missed many games. During the 2010 decade, he's a top 5 in catches, yards, TDs. If he played in a bigger market, he would have gotten more love. I agree. We're getting a lot of Hall of Fame questions. I'm not great with that. I'm really not. My standards are really high. I think A.J. Brown, I saw him play. I saw him play when I worked in Philly. I saw him play when I was around the Raiders. He dominated. I mean, the guy, freak show. I was at the draft in which he got drafted in 2000, would have been April of 11, him and Julio. Great draft. I mean, it was Cam Newton, Von Miller, Tyron Smith, J.J. Watt, Julio, A.J. Green, Aldon Smith, loaded with talent. So I'm with you. I think if you put him on the Packers or the Cowboys or something, for sure. I think he's talked about like a lock Hall of Famer. Right? I'm not great with that. I mean, I'm pretty good with like, is Patrick Mahomes a Hall of Famer? Is Travis Kelce? But some of the fringe guys, I always lean, no. Like Ndamukong Suh, I'm like, no chance. And then I look, I'm like, yeah, he'll be in the mix. My son is 9, and we listen to the pod together. I like your son a lot. He's got a bright future. I was wondering if you could look over the Bills schedule and give us a breakdown of how you see the season going. Michael thinks we still need help in the secondary. God, your kid's dialed in. I will say this about the Bills. What they proved last year, which I thought was insane when people were picking other teams to win, the Bills to miss the playoffs, the Bills to come back to earth. I'm like, when you got Josh Allen, it's the equivalent of having like an NBA star. You are a lock playoff team. And what they have proven, and unlike the Chiefs, because their division's way shittier, excuse my language there, young Michael, you are a lock to win the division. I think the Bills are, at this point in time, to me, just circle them in, division champs, 12 to 14 wins. Maybe if they get injury ravaged, 11. But I don't even think there's question marks when it comes to like what they're going to do. Okay, let's fire through. Ravens. Okay, let's coin flip. Jets, Dolphins, Saints, Patriots, Falcons, Panthers. I mean, you got a lot of wins on your schedule, man. You get the Chiefs at home. You beat them a lot in the regular season. Dolphins owned them. Tampa, even if that's a sneaky hard game. At the Texans, Josh is built for a dome. At the Steelers, Bengals, Patriots, Browns, Eagles, Jets. Schedule gets a little more difficult at the end, but I'd say 12 wins, 12 and 5. Okay, a couple more questions here. Congrats on the wedding, child expectancy. Got married last September at 26, and we're thinking of heading to Lake Tahoe for our 1 year anniversary. Do it and enjoy it. Question for the pod. As an Eagles fan, do you think there's a legitimate stigma against the fan base based on previous reputation of an overall hyper passionate following? I've been a fan since I was 7, and I was raised in Southern California. Long story. I've met and know more Eagle fans here than fans of the local teams, Rams and Chargers. Knowing that you've seen firsthand previously working for the organization, I wanted to know your thoughts on the general consensus around the league and if there's truly a genuine disdain for the Eagles fan base. I think overall, you could go to most stadiums and find fucking people that you would, I mean, not in a million years want to sit next to for 3 hours. And these videos go viral of people fighting at all these stadiums, just being complete more. I don't know why you would want to attend an NFL game, especially if you are the fan of that team, spend a decent amount of money, pay for a bunch of beers while you're in there, which are not cheap, and then get into a fight. I think you are a complete idiot. And we see these videos every single year, all the time. I don't think it's random. They typically are in the upper bowl, right? You don't usually see these fights happening in like the VIP section or in the lower bowl, right? It's like I'm coming here to enjoy the game. Obviously, Philly is an intense place to play. There is going to be a harsher environment with the people paying premiums sitting closer to the field than if you went to a Charger game, I would imagine, or a game at Levi Stadium with the 49ers. But I think overall, the experience place to place is not that much different. I know my personal experience with Philly, it's like I thought it was pretty normal. And I've been to a lot of NFL games at the Oakland Coliseum. I've been to games at Candlestick. It's like, yeah, I mean, if you piss off the wrong guy and he's wasted, you might get into a fight. I think that would happen at most places. But I think the overall percentage of people are there to root on their team and enjoy themselves. If you're a season ticket holder, if you're going to a game, you're doing it like as an escape, as something to do, something enjoyment, right? I mean, when I see people fighting at games or concerts, I'm like, I can't relate to that. And listen, I understand people get a little too sauced up, but I've always thought the Philly stuff has taken on a life of its own. I mean, the amount of people. It's one thing if a player goes, "Listen, I had a bad experience there." It's like, yeah, you can have a bad experience at most away places. You can get people to say stupid stuff. This is sports. Like, I mean, most stuff isn't that serious. But when I see like the media people or people on Twitter or people on social media, if you've never been to a game there, you're just regurgitating what other people have said because they threw a snowball at Santa. Maybe Santa got him bad presents. They booed Michael Irvin when it looked like he broke his neck. It's like, yeah, I had a bad moment. They didn't realize. But in my time going to games at the link, I thought it was pretty enjoyable. Um, Last question. Atlanta native. We've been trash for a while now. For the first time, Terry has been overly aggressive addressing our defensive holes. Lists all these players and some really good talent in the draft. Pierce, etc. What are your realistic thoughts on us winning 10, 11 games this year? I think it's on the table. We have the third easiest schedule. Penix, I see compared to Warren Moon. Bijan is a superstar. Kyle Pitts should have a good year. He finally might have a real quarterback. Defense should be average, which is a lot better than worst in the league. A lot of analysts are saying us going 7, 10, 8, 9. So I think we fly under the radar. I just have a hard time betting on the culture of your squad. I really I love Michael Penix. The biggest bet I've ever made in my entire life on a football game was Michael Penix against Texas in the Final Four. And he lit him up like a Christmas tree. It was awesome. I've been rooting for Michael Penix for years. Stud. And I think he'll be solid. But I just, it's hard for me to trust the operation. It really is. Uh, I think the Pierce thing, he's a guy, like a major wild card. He was off a ton of teams' boards. So it'd be one thing if, like, the Belichick Patriots or like when the Eagles drafted Jalen Carter, they had this infrastructure, not just from a coaching standpoint, but their players. So when I got Jalen Carter, you had to answer to Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. What are you going to do? Screw around? Act like an idiot? Of course not. You see Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata every single day at practice. Landon Dickerson. It's like, this is how we do it. Who's that guy for the Falcons? So I'm not disputing you got some talent on the team. 100%. You do have some good players. You had a good offensive line. Like you said, Bijan, excellent talent. Even Drake London's pretty solid. I'm not the Kyle Pitts thing. I'm sorry, I'm out. Like, that's just one of those things. Like, I'm just out. I don't think he's like some scrub, but obviously, if you did a redraft, he's not going in the first round, probably. Defensively, though, I don't know. I'm going to bet against it until I'm wrong. I bet against you guys last year, and I was proven right. Now, if Penix is dramatically better than Cousins, then maybe you'll be okay. But it's going to be pretty. The other thing is, like, the Bucks are just good. Like, Baker is their infrastructure, all these guys have won. It's one thing they really have. Like, all their guys know how to win. It's a problem for the Falcons. You guys just do not know how to win. And sometimes it's like, okay, we bring in Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton. It's like, okay, like Raheem Morris as a head coach, I just have no faith in their operation. I'm going to pick them to win 7, 8 games, kind of like last year. Might look a little different, but I think we end up with the same result. I screwed up. I picked the Saints last year. I'm gonna take the Bucks this year, but I'm gonna bet against you guys. And I think you guys will be one of the teams that I envision firing everybody at the end of the season, which sucks because Michael Penix going to go through a pretty chaotic NFL life. And everyone, all the Shanahan guys, love Raheem Morris. Seems like a very likable guy. So he just might be one of those guys maybe meant to be a two, which happens, right? Fangio's a good example. I saw last year. I was like, what is going on here? It might not even be all his fault. Maybe it's the GM who built just a weird team. Maybe Terry's just not very good. I would say maybe he's the bigger problem than the coach. But I'm betting against the Falcons for sure.